So breaking news over on Dawg Post, Jared Curtis, the number one player in the class of 2026, like number one quarterback, and some people think he's the number one player. Often those two things go together. Jared Curtis has committed to Georgia and the Dogs. I just sent this out on the newsletter. If you are not on our newsletter, all you have to do is click the link down below to sign up. 6'4", 225 from Nashville. I think some people thought Ohio State was the team to beat here, but it turned out to be Georgia. Matt DeBerry's comments. Curtis is a big mobile gunslinger at 6'4", 225 who can beat defenses with both his arms and legs. His arm talent is easy to notice. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second here. He can test defenses vertically and knows how to throw accurately on the run. As a sophomore, Curtis carved up opposing defenses on a consistent basis. He can win games with his arm, but he's also capable of picking up key yards on the ground. So he went for a little over 3,000 total yards last year, 2,522 on the throwing it with 25 touchdowns, 543 yards rushing with 13 touchdowns. You can find his film on Huddle. We're not going to put it up on here with copyright stuff left and right, but I did make some notes. He is not. First of all, start with the pot. I mean, he is really good, and he seems to be able to put the ball where he wants it to go. Very quick story. Mark Richt and I was talking to him before the 21 season. I was doing something on actually the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and what that season was like for Georgia. And Mark and I were talking after we finished up the interview, and I asked him what he looked for the most in a quarterback, and he said accuracy. You know, that's the number one thing with a quarterback. And from what I've seen, and it's a highlight film, this guy is very accurate. And that's something that, you know, your immediate comparison is Dylan Raiola. It looks to me like he's probably a little bit better than Dylan Raiola in terms of accuracy. There are some things for me that I get concerned about with any high school quarterback, and I'll go over those in the near future here on this video. He's not fast. Like, he's not like, you don't contain him, he's gone. You don't contain him, he's going to pick up yards on you, and he may well score touchdowns. But he's not like Cam Newton. Cam Newton wasn't super fast. Mike Vick. No, that's not what's going on here. This guy's not Mike Vick, but he can buy time with his feet. And I think one habit he may have to break in the future is, like, right now he's playing at Nashville Christian, okay? And very few schools that are private schools, very few of them play extremely competitive games. So the speed of the game is not the same. It's a little bit like what Gunnar Stockton, was dealing with at Rabun. But Rabun was playing Pace Academy. They were playing, they were playing the public schools, and for the most part, although the public schools in the mountain are not the same as public schools everywhere else, whatever. I think what I would get worried about here, and Gunnar did this a little bit too, is like Curtis really buys time with his feet, and he is good at it. And what I wonder is, as he gets older, you're not going to be able to buy that much time with your feet. You're going to be able to buy time with your feet. You see that with Carson Beck, but you're not going to be able to buy a bunch of time, not in the SEC. The other thing that I liked about him was this isn't just him kind of out and about. He's staying in the pocket and making throws. One of the things I love to see about quarterbacks. I'm hardly a guru, but I know more than most, but I'm hardly a guru. He had two hands on the ball in the pocket for the most part. I'd like to see him tuck it when he's out running, because eventually someone is going to come and get you. They're going to punch the ball out. But he has great ball fakes. He stays in the pocket. I do think what I talked about a second ago is it going to hurt him in the future looking for the perfect play while he's buying time with his feet? So sometimes all the time in quarterback, you got to take what you can get unless it's the last play of the game, And I just wouldn't overdo that. But man, he is very accurate, and he can place the ball even when he's under pressure. Raiola had a much harder time with that, but to be fair, he was constantly under pressure at Buford. I mean, it was nonstop. So I think if you're kind of in that situation, it's not great. But, I've covered Georgia for long enough to where I saw Matthew Stafford as a recruit. Saw Aaron, obviously. I did not see DJ Shockley. But this guy is very accurate with the football. And that is like a major, major thing. Now, will that translate to him being a superstar? I don't know. He's going to be a 5-star player. How this works, by the way, right now, everybody's got him listed as a 4-star. So I worked in the .com world for 15 years, and thankfully I don't work there anymore. And what happens is there are guys that they spot early, and he's one of them. And they say, well, he's our number one player in the country, but they won't yet give him a 5-star because they have a process and all this stuff. Look, the guy's a 5-star player. That's all there is to it. And he will be in the near future when they kind of get their ducks in a row at the .coms. Is he the number one player in the country? I wouldn't have the first idea how to answer that question. I don't see enough guys to say that. He certainly could be. Aaron would move and create plays. This guy's doing that too. I'm talking about at Plant when he was in high school. When you look at Stetson Bennett, what he did at Georgia, this guy doesn't have that quickness that Stetson does. He has the ability though to see, like it's like he can see it in slow motion or something like that. And he's like, oh well, it's time to run. So I don't, he's not plotting and methodical like somebody like Tim Tebow, but he can really hurt you with his legs. Like if it's 3rd and 6 and you got too many DBs and everybody's dropping back and the rush goes too far past him, he's going to get that 6 yards. Even if he's dropping back, 6 yards from line of scrimmage, picking up that 12 yards is not a big deal for him. Sprinting like Stetson did for 80 yards or 77 yards against Auburn, no, I don't think that. I mean, that could happen, but that doesn't seem like it's his game right there. I mean, Stetson was just running free like a chicken in the yard, like he could just go wherever. That's not what this is. This is much more methodical, sort of. It looks totally like he knows what he's doing. But there's going to be a balance here from his accuracy is really good from what I can see. Balancing that with, is he trying to make too many plays with his feet in the pocket? Like sometimes it's like, hey man, get the ball out. That was a touchdown and you missed it. You still scored a touchdown, but that was a touchdown on the right-hand side, and you ran to your left. He likes to run to his left a lot. Maybe that's just because defenses play to the right hand of the offense a lot in high school. That used to be the case. So I don't know, but you never can tell when someone's a high school sophomore. Oh, this person's going to be an NFL quarterback. Watching Jacob Eason play his first quarter in Washington, I think I was the only person that actually covers Georgia that went out there to watch him play. Watching Jacob Eason in the first quarter of his game, it was the Friday night before Georgia played Kentucky in 2015. He looked like he was going to be a Hall of Fame NFL quarterback, and I am not exaggerating. He was doing stuff, and I was like, this is crazy. And then the second quarter, he made a lot of mistakes, and I was like, we got a little bit of ways to go here. It's always both with high school players. Like with Matthew, there was just no throw he didn't, there was no throw out there that Matthew Stafford felt like he couldn't make. And frankly, he was really good at that. I never saw, obviously, Patrick Mahomes or people like that in Texas. I saw Dylan Raiola. I saw, Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm was really accurate in high school. And he scored a lot of touchdowns in high school. He knew how to play. I just think his physical attributes after a while made it harder for him. But part of me wants to compare Curtis to Matthew Stafford. Part of me. Because, Matthew's pretty tall. Matthew's pretty big. I mean, 6'4", 225. I'm 6'4", 240. Probably today I'm 6'4", 242 after lunch. We went a little too hard. But, Matthew's Matthew's sturdier built than I am, but Matthew's about my size. Let me look and see how big Matthew is actually. And so this guy looks not dissimilar from that. But can you be accurate? Matthew's 6'3", 220. Okay, very similar. No wonder. So, but what I will literally never forget the first time I saw Matthew Stafford throw a football ever. I will never forget the first time I saw Mike Vick throw a football ever. Those two guys, the ball's not the same. It's not, nobody else has been like that. I've seen a lot of people live. Tua, Jalen Hurts, Cam, Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of different people through there. Deshaun, Joe Burrow. None of those people were Joe Burrow. Very few of them were Matthew. And, not a lot of people are Cam. Deshaun Watson was good, but he wasn't Matthew. He wasn't Joe Burrow, and he certainly wasn't Cam, but he was very, very good. And same thing with, when you start talking about Baker Mayfield made a lot of plays too. And Jalen Hurts, whatever, really, 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 really good players, NFL starters. But are these guys freaks? Like in high school, that's hard to tell. Matthew, not that hard to tell. I'm trying to think. Zamir White, although couple knee injuries later, not as much, but Zamir White, no. AJ, yeah. Eric Berry, yeah. And to some degree, Aaron Murray. I mean, Aaron Murray was serious out there. If Curtis is going to be as accurate with the ball as you see in these highlights, which you would think he will be pretty accurate, then he's going to be dangerous. He's going to be very hard to deal with. I want to also talk about here, when you think about this now, this quarterback room, Carson Beck's going to depart. And going into 25, you're going to have Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi, and now, Curtis. At minimum. Now, you could have some other people too, but at minimum, you'll have those three people. They'll probably get somebody else. They wanted to get two last year. Didn't happen. Curtis and Gunnar Stockton play similarly. Gunnar is can attack you with his feet. It's more obvious, I guess you could say. Gunnar Stockton is a really good dual threat quarterback. Curtis, I would not necessarily call a dual threat quarterback, but he can hurt you with his feet. Everybody that's playing quarterback now, you're going to have to hurt people with your feet. You're just going to have to. And if you don't, then you're going to be JT Daniels, and you're going to be hurt at some point, and you're never going to play football again. I mean, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, obviously Lamar Jackson, even Tua and Jalen Hurts. There's no Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is the NFL equivalent to Stetson Bennett. I mean, it looks like him, even with the 13 on there, or especially with the 13 on there. That's what I'm trying to say. This guy has the capability of doing that too. So here comes Kirby and them. What happens when you lose the number one quarterback in the country a few days before signing day? The next cycle, you go get the number one. Yeah, and I'll be, we'll be up in Nashville to watch him play a couple times. I can just tell you that right now. And I will be curious to see, how good is this guy, in real life? Because, the quarterback I saw more than any probably was Brock Vandagriff, and then a close second was Gunnar Stockton. I saw those two guys play a lot. Gunnar Stockton knows how to play football. This guy knows how to play football. And, that is really important at quarterback. Are you accurate? Do you know how to play? Are you just out there running around? Are you out there with a great arm? Or are you out there with really explosive footwork and you can get down the field quick with the ball in your hand? You're just a quarterback. You just happen to be a quarterback. Or do you know how to play the position? I think, just straight up from me, he's really accurate with the football. And, Mike Bobo, they can get him to play the right way. I talked about Matthew a lot here. My frame of reference for guys playing that are going on to Georgia, okay, here's my frame of reference. If you're a quarterback, my frame of reference is, where do you compare to Matthew Stafford? My frame of reference for running backs, how do you compare to Todd Gurley? How do you compare to Zamir White in high school? After that, I compare it to who was the best player I've seen. Is it Trayvon Walker playing middle linebacker for Upson Lee and eventually goes on to be a number 1 draft pick? Or are you, like DBs, that's so much. I just don't know enough about that to say. But if you don't compare in the universe of those guys, then, you're really not going to be the number 1 player in the country. And I don't work for Georgia. I don't know Jared Curtis at all, and I'm not trying to be good or bad about it. But he looks really good. But of course, there are things he's going to have to get better, and that's just what it is. But the accuracy is noticeable. The ability to know when to run is noticeable. That there are some guys, that he misses some of that's quarterbacking. But you got to hit them, and he is very good with ball handling. He's very good with ball fakes. He stays in the pocket. He's not like fast. He's pretty fast, but he's not like, wow. No, that's not what he does. And that's okay too, but he sure seems to know how to play. I just, my criticism or concern is what's going to be like when you can't buy as much time with your feet? What's going to be like when you have to make quicker decisions? It's one thing to play in high school in a private school in Tennessee. Okay, not a great, we're not talking about you're playing in Gwinnett County. All right. What's it going to be like when the clock goes much faster? Carson Beck was playing 7A in Florida, won the state championship. His clock was probably relatively fast. So his time to get there probably didn't take him as long. Now, it took him 3 years on campus to finally be the starter for his 4th year, 20, 21, 22, and then finally in 23. But, by then, you're very used to things. So that will be the challenge for Curtis. He's not going to start against UCLA. I mean, I say that right now. I very seriously doubt that. But, we'll just see because Gunnar Stockton knows how to play football. Ryan Puglisi definitely knows how to play football. Gunnar's been there. At this point, he will be a sophomore this season. He'll be a junior by the time that Jared Curtis comes to town. So what's Curtis going to do in that time? But I think for Georgia, it's not surprising. I mean, these guys they're going to attack being the number 1 class in the country at all the time. That's just what they're going to try to do, and they're very successful at doing it. I'm not surprised with this, but he's a very accurate quarterback from what I've seen so far. Good pickup for the Dogs.